What's up, you guys? Welcome to my channel. This is Blue Butterfly Mystic. I'm Kate, and if you are new here, welcome, and if you are not, welcome back. So I thought that we were done with the first reading, but I have been getting a nudge for the last hour saying, no, you're not. And I have been trying to figure out what the message is, and all that I've been able to hear is something about coming home. And I don't know if that is talking about coming home to self, coming home to God, spirituality, maybe a physical home. But I keep hearing a song, and just so everybody knows, I have Chris with me again. Hi, Chris.
Hey.
Hey. Um, One thing that you don't know about me and Chris is that we are lovers of all music, and we love to sing together. Us being able to harmonize um, seamlessly, um, without practice, without even trying, just riding around together in the car is one of the most rewarding parts of our relationship, in my opinion.
Well, I think it shows like the synchronicities you're gonna have with one another. Like it's one thing for people to say like they finish each other's sentences or that they know what the other person is thinking, but I mean whether it be like ordering food, whether it's a singing like this, or whether I can just look at you and know exactly what you're thinking and I know what you want me to do without you saying a word.
Hell, even an hour apart from each other, like as far as distance of where we live, like we can feel each other's feelings before we even text or call or anything.
And just that level of synchronicity, like that connection you can have with someone. And I always say that music is definitely a spiritual thing, and when you can find somebody that you can harmonize with, when those energies intertwine and produces that beautiful sound, it's a almost spiritual connection.
For sure. So, one of the songs that I was hearing is actually one of my favorites from childhood, one that we've already actually harmonized on in the past. And I think you know which one I'm talking about.
Uh-huh.
um, so we're going to spit a little harmony to you guys, and maybe you'll be able to kind of feel what we're feeling. Country roads, take me home to a place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country road. I swear to God, every time it's the goosebumps. Okay, so that to me is like, for me personally, so I have a lot of family that came from Virginia, West Virginia, and every time we travel between Ohio and South Carolina, we throw quarters over the West Virginia Bridge in remembrance of our lineage. And there's a lot of things that get passed down generationally, including generational curses. I think that's where we're going with this. And a lot of those things are not talked about from generation to generation. And I know in our last video we were talking a lot about shadow work and healing, and one of my things that I've personally been working on is healing those generational wounds. And while doing a spread, a mother wound spread for me and my mom, I learned a lot, actually. But one of the biggest things, and something that a lot of people don't like to talk about, but hey, I love talking about things that nobody wants to talk about. I learned that sexual abuse has been an ongoing problem in my family for generations. And I mean, like, my daughter is we're going through court for her right now. I myself, as a child, was sexually abused by a family member. My mom was sexually abused by a family member. My nana was sexually abused by a family member. But none of this was ever talked about. And I've always felt in my heart that being able to talk about it, being able to advocate for that, is one of my biggest callings. But even further, more than advocating for what people like to call victims, I like to call survivors, is also advocating for the other side. And it's not always, a man and a child. It's not always two adults. It's not always, people have this idea of what they think sexual abuse looks like. And this is a very controversial topic, and if this is in any way going to trigger you, I suggest you go ahead and click off now, because I have very large opinions. I've lived a lot in my short years of life, and I'm probably going to get a lot of backlash for this. But this is what Spirit is calling me to do.
And it's definitely a difficult subject for me, and I'm going to do my best to get through this. I can't say that I was molested as a child, but what I can say is that I was involved with a situation where, as a 22-year-old, I was in a relationship with a 15-year-old. And I could try and justify it by talking about what the court said and that there was no harm or ill intent or anything like that, but the fact remains of what that age gap was and what happened. And it has followed me for years, and it has defined my life for so long. Because that is that thing that when people look at me, I'm always worried that they know that they're going to find out. And I've gone through therapy. I mean, I've had therapists tell me that I'm not a monster, that I'm not a predator, anything like that. But when the rest of the world looks at you and all they see is that, all they assume without knowing anything, it makes it incredibly difficult to move forward in life, because you hold on to so much guilt and shame, not just because of what you've done, but because of the pain you caused your family and the way that people look at you, the way that people talk down to you. And it's always been interesting to me just to meet people who will treat me one way, and then it's like the minute they find out about those parts of the past that I don't even want to talk about, that don't define who I am, it changes. And when I met Kate, that was a part that I didn't want to tell her. We met and we started talking as friends, but things started to progress. And I guess it's not going to be a secret that at one point she and I were together. But the night that I first kissed her, I remember she actually she jumped back, and she told me afterwards the spirit was telling her to stop. Like, what are you thinking? And I remember sitting there and I was just shaking, and she could tell something was wrong. And I had to open up to her right then, and I knew what she had been through, what her family had just went through, and I thought I had lost her before I even really got to know her.
And it took a lot for me with my child going through what she went through, and with those wounds being so fresh. And first of all, I just want to applaud Christopher for being so open and so forthcoming and honest with his past, as well as myself. 111 I just saw on the timer. I really feel like this conversation is going to break open some barriers, because, you know, one of the things that, well, immediately when he told me, you know, what the situation was with his past, my initial reaction was, I need you to leave.
Yeah.
I need you to leave. And he understood. He didn't, you know, no arguing. Okay. No arguing. No, he completely understood. And I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I'm going to be honest, you know, I always, no matter what, even with my own abusers, I have tried to put myself in their shoes, try to understand why it is, you know, why they did what they did, why this happened, how they got to that point. And what I realized with Christopher's situation specifically was he literally was punished for something that a situation that I had been in myself as a teenager. I was that 15-year-old dating a 22-year-old guy. You know, my mom, did she like it? No. But she didn't stop it, you know. My mom was a young teen mom. She was 15 when she got pregnant with me, and my biological father was 18 or 19 at the time. There was an age gap there. And, you know, and then even furthermore than that, when I was 17 and I moved out, I lived with friends at first, but I ended up, after that, only being with them for, you know, a few months, moved in with who became my husband, and I was 17 and he was 23. And when I was 19, we got married, and unfortunately we're still married. Separated 6 years, 6-year anniversary coming up here in October. That's awesome. But the next time that I talked to Chris and I told him, you know, like, look, there's a difference between harming somebody, harming a child, or assaulting another human and having a relationship with somebody who's, for lack of better terms, this is what I say, meat suit, I'm sorry, has been on earth a few years shorter than you. And I could not condemn him. I could not judge him, because I was that girl. And I think that the diversity of that in and of itself, you know, the criminal who had been charged with, you know, that nature, and, you know, then you have somebody like me who people look at as a sexual assault victim, coming together and defying those, you know, stigmas. I think that it speaks a lot, not just the diversity of us as man and woman, or, difference in our spirituality and our views on life, but this right here, this is the nitty gritty of what we fight against as friends, what we fought as even in the short time that we were a couple. And I'm sure that a lot of people fight against.
Well, and there are going to be people that even now, like, they hear this and they're just going to...
What is wrong with them?
They'll stop watching. What's wrong with y'all? They're going to be the trolls that are going to come out.
Oh, they're going to come.
And I've heard it all. And I tell people really quick, so I've been called worse by better. Like, there's nothing that you can say to me that I haven't heard.
How about there's nothing that you can say that I haven't already done to myself? I haven't called myself. I am my own biggest critic. And there's nothing that anybody can do or say that I haven't already, put on myself.
Exactly. And one of the big keys on it was just forgiveness. And it was forgiveness for one another, but most of all, forgiveness for ourselves. Because, yeah, we've made poor choices, but those choices don't define who we are. It is a segment of our life. And while we still have to live with consequences of those actions, we can choose to forgive and to love. And one of the tattoos that I have is a forgiveness sigil, which was actually given to me by Catherine here.
Oh, we're using governments now.
Yes, you call me Christopher, I'm calling you Catherine.
All right.
But I hate needles, for one. I can't deal with them. But that night, we had an agreement that if I was going to get a tattoo, she had to single me. And that was the first time that she and I actually recorded together.
Publicly.
We've sang together plenty of times. But we actually recorded together that night. But the tattoo I have is a forgiveness sigil. And I wanted to read this specifically so I didn't mess it up. It says, "I forgive myself for all the mistakes that hold me. I accept accountability. I forgive those who never and never will apologize to me. For my higher self, I choose me." And when I saw that, it just stuck out, because forgiving myself has been the hardest thing in my life, because I knew what I should have done. I knew the life I should have been living. I had the world set before me, and I chose to go down a path that threw a lot of that away, and that set me back for a long time. But I had to forgive myself for that, because I know that's not who I am. I am not that choice. I am not that person that people look at when all they see is that.
All they see is a criminal record, and they automatically judge you based on what they see on a piece of paper and not what they have sitting in front of you. And I think that transcends across so many different areas of life and different, I mean, I'm losing my words right now.
It does, because I know I was the person that used to look down on criminals or drug addicts, whatever it may be, like, where it's a
And just for the record, while he says drug addicts, and I'll be honest about this, because of my past and because of the trauma that I've been through, I have experimented with drugs, and I know the dangers. I've almost died several times, some by choice and some not, but I understand the dangers of drugs and also the benefits, because, and also, the way that I see spirituality, and because I see things, well, I see spirit almost kind of like how the Native Americans, the indigenous Native Americans. I don't mean to offend anybody by saying that. I want to make sure that that's cleared, because I have very, very strong lineage there. But they would sit around and smoke spirits and or drink peyote or whatever, and then go out into the desert and have journeys and spiritual journeys.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it can be beneficial. I just think it's about how you use it. But before living through what I've been through and experiencing what I've experienced, I myself have been like, oh my God, you've done drugs? No. Like, and honestly, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I mean, what they serve our children for ADHD, it's literally one molecule away from being the street version of methamphetamine. So, just because it has an FDA label on it doesn't mean that it's not a drug.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think what this message is really getting at is, before you judge somebody, period, take a look at yourself. Can you put yourself in that person's shoes? Can you try to understand what they've been through before you condemn them to whatever stereotypical box that you're trying to put them into?
And when you look at just kind of what we were talking about before we started this, is that letting go of the past. It's not just letting go of your past, it's letting go of the past of others, because we all have one. And that's not saying that there aren't people in this world who are probably genuinely evil people who have made some terrible choices. But at the same time, like, we should not look at ourselves as any better than anyone else. It's not our place to hold our sense of morality.
Well, have we not all done things that are wrong? Have we not all felt wrath or fits of rage or hurt other people, even if it was momentarily or if it was for a long time?
And Scripture says that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And as old Professor Mine used to like to say, that word all in the Greek means all. It means everyone. If you are a Christian, you believe there's only one perfect person to ever live, and I promise you that I'm not him. And he hasn't lived for 2,000 years, almost. But just because my sin looks different than someone else's, it doesn't make me any better or any worse than anybody else in this world. Any type of judgment we put on people is man-made judgments. I am accountable for my actions, and I hold myself accountable for those actions. And one day I will be held accountable on an even higher standard to that.
And honestly, it's a cultural standard that we live by here in the United States, because there are other places in the world, other countries, where there's young boys that are men at 12 and 14 years old. Girls that are having babies much younger than we do here.
And you're right. And I remember looking back and even being told, like, if you waited 2 more months, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And just being told that, like, it's one of those, basically, like, the guy's gonna be like, you're an idiot, is what it boiled down to. And I've been told that a lot in situation. I've told myself that a lot in the situation. But at the end of the day, you're right. It is a moral standard, a moral code that we have self-imposed. And I'm not saying that it's a wrong one, because I understand the basis of it.
I do too, because I mean, I don't really think that, in my opinion, that even when I was 17, when I was 19, when I got married, that I made that decision. Or what I should say is, when I made that decision, I did not fully know myself. There was no way that I feel that I had all the information that I needed in order to make such a life-altering choice.
When even in my 30s now, Kate and I have talked about this a lot, and I know we're going to delve a little bit into our relationship and something we don't normally do, but there are times like when I would tell her that I love her, and she would tell me that I couldn't or that I didn't, because when people love one another, they don't do some of the things that I did, whether it be through lying or hiding or whatever it may have been. And it took her calling me out on that to realize that I didn't fully understand love, and that even though I may have loved her to the best of my ability, I definitely couldn't love her at times like I claimed to have, because I would have treated her differently. I wouldn't have put either one of us in situations that I put us in.
And I'm not the perfect, I don't even know everything that there is to know about love. I learn every single day something new about what love actually means and what being the example of unconditional love actually means. And I feel like my relationship with you is a testimony to unconditional love, because we've been able to forgive and, look past and, understand and come through so much that has been blockages or um, societal things that are thrown at us that are just completely out of our control, and then things that are within our control. We've come through a lot. A lot has happened in the last year.
Well, and I think a lot of it is just due to baggage that you and I have carried from our past. And I think it ties in with this theme of letting go
And coming home to self, coming home in general, just like
getting back to your roots.
yes, and forgiving your past, forgiving your ancestral past, forgiving everybody for the things that they've done or will do, and just having the understanding that there is no perfect person, there is no perfect relationship. And if you think that there is one, then I'm sorry to say that it's very unrealistic to think that there's a certain person out there that's never going to disappoint you.
And so we definitely had that in our relationship. I mean, there are times where I know that I pissed Kate off.
Oh,
and there are
on
times,
a daily sometimes.
on a moment by moment basis.
We literally live moment by moment, like.
But I mean, there are times where I thought we were going to be done talking, and there's times where we both said and did things that were a little malicious to one another, and we'd come back later and apologize for it and say that we didn't mean it, or it was a defense or survival mechanism. And like, we can make excuses to one another, but we know that there were things done by both of us that were wrong. But at the same time, I choose to forgive her. I choose to move forward. And talk about it doesn't make sense because I won't go into the details of everything. Now's not the time nor the place. But a lot of people would call me crazy for still talking to her.
A lot of people would call me crazy for talking to you, period.
100%. and we definitely probably should have thought things out, planned things out a little bit more at times, but things worked the way they did, and I don't regret it.
I mean, I completely believe in divine timing. I believe that everybody comes into our life for a reason, and it's always to teach us something, teach us about ourselves, and, to help us grow.
And I think part of why things happen the way they did for us is because we were supposed to help each other grow. And part of that growth just came from us at times, whether it be rushing into situations or just not really taking the time to get to know one another like we claimed we were doing, or putting up facades, whatever it may have been. But it taught us, because like we said multiple times today, I look back from now to a year ago, and I see a major difference. I see a major difference in both of us, and I see a major difference in how I look at you. And I've heard, we've been over this before, people telling me that you were just going to use me and throw me aside. And
well, because you're okay. So Chris is more, he's very much is it left brain? It's like more of the stability. He's a Capricorn, and he's like he throws himself into work. He's like almost OCD with like how he keeps his house. Almost. And I'm the complete opposite. I live by the seat of my pants, and I do whatever I feel led to do, and I'm messy. My house is messy. I have kids, and it's very lived in. But you know what? I'm the most organized, unorganized person you'll ever meet, because I know that the tarot deck that I'm looking for is under the couch beside the blue sock, and if you lift up the so we're very opposite in those ways too, but in the same respect, we complement each other.
Yes. And people try to use the ways that you and I were different
against us.
Yes.
Yes.
Over and over. And sometimes they got the better of us, but then other times when I sat there and actually realized that when people said that you're using me, like, you made me realize that I made that choice. Not that,
willingly,
not to let you use me, but that I chose to help you. I chose to do whatever.
out of the kindness of your heart.
Is a choice I made. I could have said no.
Absolutely. And I explained to you in the beginning, like, please don't do things for me that aren't out of the kindness of your heart. Please don't do things with expecting something in return, because I'm not going to do that to you.
And this is where it gets into, like, letting go of past relationships when it comes to even current relationships with people. Because I got so used to women lying or using or manipulating, or me having to go above and beyond to even get someone's attention, that I brought that into Kate.
And I, on the opposite end of things, have been so used to men or just significant others in general doing things for me and saying that it was out of the kindness of their heart, but then using it as a bargaining tool or as, something to hold over my head so that I would perform or be what they wanted or what they needed me to be at that point in time.
And we saw answers that all the time. I mean, I remember after knowing you for a couple of weeks, giving you the keys to my vehicle, not even hesitating when I did it.
Everybody else would have been like, "What are you thinking?"
You looked at me like I was crazy.
I did. I was so shocked, but I was in the middle of a transition period, and I literally had nobody to help me move. And after only knowing Chris for a few weeks, he put so much trust in me, and I knew that he was special, that our relationship was special, and that he was somebody that I could truly depend on, and he's always been that.
And a lot of that was also just like being open to receiving what Spirit says, because a lot of times I feel led to know like how people are spiritually. I know that she and I once were in a situation where we were in a courtroom, and she saw somebody come through a door, and I remember she just like clenched my leg, and I looked at her and asked what was wrong, and she said that man is evil, that he did something terrible, before we even knew the man's case or what he did. And when you listen to what the man's crimes were, they were heinous.
But you got to tell them what I saw in my mind's eye before that man even came through the door.
Go ahead.
Oh, you want me to say
Yes.
it? So this was actually a bond hearing for my child's abuser that I was being present for, and nobody wanted to come with me. Chris was the only one. He actually left work in his company vehicle to come get me and take me to this bond hearing, and to be with me and support me through it. But when we sat down, in my mind's eye, I turned to him and I said, "Chris, I see feathers everywhere." And I was like, "What does that mean?" And you can tell him, because you know scripture better than me.
When you look at Psalm 91, it talks about being under like the refuge, like a mother hen has
33,
under her
33
wings.
on the timer.
So like whenever she kept talking about she's seeing these feathers, I'm like, we're protected. Like no matter what happens, like we're covered. It's gonna be okay.
And it was.
Mm-hmm.
It was okay. It was a very tough hearing, even though it wasn't actually the criminal side of anything yet, but I was just letting the judge know, why I felt, he didn't deserve bond. And his public defender actually interrupted me in the middle of what I was saying and made a very rude remark, and I broke down into tears in front of everybody. But I don't think that there was a single person in that courtroom after I finished that believed that he deserved bond.
No, absolutely.
So, but with all of that being said, I think that the overall message that we've been led to give, to share through our own testimony, separately and together, is that we can't judge other people. We really have to dig down deep and be honest with ourselves and, see if there's some kind of understanding in any way, shape, or form, some kind of way that we can. I just got a notification. Thank you, Spirit. Some kind of way, even if you don't want that person in your life, and that's fine. That is completely your choice. But just to show love and kindness and grace and compassion and understanding to everybody around you, no matter what their circumstances look like, their present circumstances, their past circumstances, their family life, or what their childhood looked like. Nothing like that. We cannot, because people change all the time. I'm not the same person I was 3 months ago.
Absolutely.
I'm not the same person I was a year ago, 3 years ago, and I'm definitely not who I thought I was going to be, but I'm the best version of myself at this point in time, I believe, presently.
No, and I think it even ties into the last video in that we do all things out of love. And that includes interaction with people that we may not like or want, like I said, want to be around. And it's loving ourselves first and foremost, because we have to love ourselves before we can love anyone else. And it's also acknowledging that there is a creator who loves us. Christians believe that Jesus went to the cross and died for our sins, knowing everything we were going to do, and that we were the ones who put him on the cross. But he loved us enough to go anyway. And that's the type of unconditional love that I don't think anyone really outside of like mothers or fathers really understand, that willingness to give up your life for your children. And I can't say I understand that because I don't have kids yet, but I know that there are people in this life that I love to the point where I would give my life for them. Kate's one of those people. And I think when it boils down to everything, it's just being able to acknowledge that we all have a past. We all have to let go of our own guilt and shame from that past. But in doing that, we should also be willing to let go of the judgment that comes from looking at other people's past, because we all have a story. Some are messier than others, but
we're all crazy train wrecks. It's just a matter of which one you're willing to jump on. I mean, that's just how I see it. Mine's full of glitter and pizza and fireworks.
Well, and I thought back to the show Rent, and it says, I'm looking for baggage that goes with mine.
Right.
And I think that's what we all want. Is the ringtone on my phone right now is actually Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls. And I love the chorus, and I don't want the world to see me.
Because I don't think that they'd understand. When everything's made to be broken, I just want you to know who I am. Yes.
But that's the point. And my phone buzz notification confirmation. But, we want someone that's going to understand and love us for us. So that night when I opened up to Kate and I poured out my heart to her, part of it from a physical level was probably me just trying to like self-destruct and sabotage, like if this woman's gonna hate me, let her hate me all the way. But the other part is that inner child, that 22-year-old Chris that is screaming for somebody to understand, for someone to love, to know that I wasn't the mistake that I made. And I found someone in Kate that does love and understand me. She may not condone some of the choices that I made and decisions that I made, but she loves anyway.
I don't love you any less because of it. And so we're just encouraging you as the listener today to start over in the way that you view yourself, the way that you view other people, because every day is a new opportunity to start fresh. You can completely change your viewpoint on life and start living a different way just based on one piece of information that you receive. And I think that that has so much power, so much like uh oh, what am I trying to
Influence?
say? Well, it wasn't an INF word, but it was infinite possibilities, infinite, just anything is possible.
And I think even what you said is like when you can drastically change your life on one piece of information. I think it's actually Carrie Underwood that said, which is funny because she was playing in the background right then. But when you figure out love is all that matters after all, it makes everything else seem so small. So when you actually realize, accept, and believe that little piece of information, that love is all that matters, it changes the way you live your life, the way you treat people, the way you look at yourself, everything. But it's realizing what love is. It is accepting it for yourself, displaying it for others, and embodying it with every move, every breath. And it is a process. It is a lifelong process. It is a moment-by-moment process. And when you fall and you scrape and cut yourself up, it's pulling yourself back up. And also knowing there are people there who are willing to lend out a hand to help you back up, if you're willing to accept that. And it may not be who you expected, but it's exactly who you need at that particular time.
Well, the road rolls out like a welcome mat to a better place than the one we're at. And I ain't got no kind of plan, and I've had all this town I can stand. Well, I got friends out on the coast. We can jump in the water and see what floats. You've been saving for a rainy day. Let's beat the storm and be on our way. It don't matter to me, wherever we are is where I wanna be. And honey, for once in our lives, let's take our chances and roll the dice. I can be your lucky penny, you can be my four-leaf clover. Starting over. Starting over. I know
I
you
love
love
when she
when
does that.
Well, I just want to say, if you have stuck around this long, because this is an oddly long video for what I usually post, but if you have stuck around this long, I hope that mine and Chris's testimony, this message, has helped you in some way, shape, or form. And if it did, please drop a like, please subscribe to this channel, and share, because we want everybody to be able to see the example of unconditional love so that they can use that as a tool in their own lives. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I love you. And again, thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.